Hi everyone, my name is Luke Chenevy and I'm here to do a book review over Democracy in Black. Inequality and racial habits are part of the American idea. They are not just a symptom of bad racist people who fail to live up to pristine ideals. We are, in the end, what we do, in this society we have all made. So much so that we can have a black man in the White House and nearly 1 million black men and women in the Big House. Not even into the first chapter, and Eddie S. Glaude's nonfiction book titled Democracy in Black doesn't pull its punches. This quote from page 8 is extremely powerful and made me stop in the middle of my reading. As I began to read Democracy in Black, I couldn't help but feel completely ignorant, blind to this growing problem happening all around me. Being a white male in America, I couldn't help but feel partially responsible for this just growing problem in America, and it just made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. Which isn't a bad feeling because so many people associate a negative connotation with this word uncomfortable. And in Glaude's Democracy in Black, he approaches that exact feeling of uncomfortability and in the best way possible, really, to open up readers and my own eyes to a world unseen, changing the way I view myself in America as a nation. The book explores the lives of black people in America and how racism is still a tremendous problem in the nation pledged to freedom, justice, and liberty for all. So, what is Democracy in Black all about? Well, Democracy in Black is a nonfiction book about how racism still enslaves America today. Eddie S. Glaude evaluates America's government system and leaders, the underlying racism of white Americans, and he also uncovers hidden stories of black people and their struggles in America. Glaude expands upon all of these ideas with in-depth analysis, identifying the value gap as the largest problem in keeping racial inequality alive in America. He defines the value gap on page 30, saying, "The value gap reflects something more basic, that no matter our stated principles or how much progress we think we've made, white people are more valued than others in this country." This is Glaude's main grievance with racism in America today, but he doesn't hesitate to add and explain more key terms important to his discussion, such as racial habits, white fear, white supremacy, and disremembering. The complicated discussion of racism in America today can branch off into so many different categories, but Glaude maintains his focus and properly unpacks the complexities that could otherwise be problematic, successfully breaking it all down. After reading Democracy in Black, I found only one criticism that I had with the book. I didn't really like how Glaude approached some of the more involved political topics. His intelligent language is welcome in all other parts of the book, but the second half of the book, when he deals with mostly politics and leadership, it cripples the discussion he is intending to have. Instead of capturing and holding my attention, this section ended up boring me. Specifically in chapter 7, when Glaude talks about Obama and black liberals. The whole subject of Democracy in Black requires the reader to pay close attention to what Glaude is writing in order to understand it, and this specific part of the book diverted that very important attention that I needed to have. I felt myself falling into a bad habit of monotonous reading, just not being engaged with the text at all. This really remains the only criticism that I have with the book, because I really did thoroughly enjoy it. Specifically, I love the stories he shares of black people in real life situations in America to support his narrative and display the reality of what he's talking about. A great example of this is on page 11, when Glaude writes about a woman named Christine Fraser and how she was forcefully and cruelly evicted from her home. On page 11, he says, "DeKalb County sheriffs and deputies arrived in the middle of the night on May 2nd, 2012 to evict her. They came in like I was a dope dealer. At 3 in the morning, they drilled a hole in the lock in my front door. They drilled out the lock and just came in my house. It was the most terrifying moment that I can remember in my life. My grandson is 6 years old, and to this day, he does not like police officers because he remembers. He remembers." These kind of stories that Glaude places throughout the whole book really enrich the entire experience of reading it because the stories made his argument real, and I felt empathy for the black people he wrote about. I found myself being more engaged since these stories were incredibly successful at provoking genuine emotional reactions out of me. Whether I logged my emotion through a note or just read in shock or awe, these real experiences pulled me into what Glaude wrote about. Additionally, to complement his writing, I was really impressed by his deep analysis throughout all of the book. In chapter 5, when he dissects the conception most Americans have of Martin Luther King Jr., it was just really eye-opening for me and it flipped the entire narrative of what I've learned in America on its head. So something that sticks out is on page 100. It says, "The man who sacrificed his life to dislodge the precious ideals of democracy from the stranglehold of white supremacy has now become the lead actor in the last staging of the tragedy of race in this country." This quote produced such a wow moment for me. The whole chapter pulled the same kind of reaction because of, again, how it completely reinvents the way I think about Martin Luther King Jr. He describes the corrupt nature of Martin Luther King Jr. Day on page 101, saying, "It is a memorization of a particular understanding of him, without his criticisms of white supremacy, poverty, and empire, designed to fortify the illusion of colored blindness in a country with dramatic racial inequality." Glaude confronts the whitewashed idea of MLK in the United States, exposing the way white people have misconstrued his entire memory. This has to be my favorite chapter from the book, just because of this amazing impact it had and just how real it felt. Also, Glaude's writing style is so thoughtful, detailed, and sophisticated. It was perfect for this kind of topic. Despite my complaint with his writing in chapter 7, I thought that overall the book benefited from it. I was always highlighting throughout my reading because his excellent word choice just created so many good quotes. It was difficult to pick just one example to showcase just this ability that he has, but I did manage to find one that I feel like properly demonstrates this. On page 231, he writes, "We have to break loose from the straitjacket of race that confines how African Americans live and how democracy is imagined in this country. That will involve turning our backs on business as usual in American politics, ellipses, letting 1,000 flowers of black political expression bloom." Glaude expertly uses multiple metaphors here to improve his descriptive language in describing how a revolution can be staged in America. There are so many more notable quotes in Democracy in Black, but this one really stuck out to me as a proper example of this talent that he has. In conclusion, Eddie S. Glaude's book, Democracy in Black, does a great job of examining racism in America and the problem it still is. Glaude takes the reader into an important discussion that is essential for all Americans to read, in my opinion. It gave me a new perspective on what black people deal with every day in the country I grew up in. I had been convinced to believe racism was all but gone in the United States, but in this book turned that assumption upside down. The past can't be forgotten. It's part of who we are. Plus, it always seems to have a nasty habit of popping up in the future, as seen in America today, and just in general with many things in our lives. This is more than just a nonfiction book, but rather a call for America to wake up and realize the great disparity of value between white people and black people. I would highly recommend Democracy in Black to anyone who is looking to further understand this really complex topic, since it is so relevant in the daily lives of people around the world, not just in the United States. Be informed and read Democracy in Black. Thank you for watching.